Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. So first I'll introduce to you Sport Beattie. He is the founder and CEO of Game Rangers International, and he will be interviewing Neddy Mulimo today. Sport, take it away. It looks like you're on mute. There you go.
Thank you, Melissa. First of all, I'd like to just start by saying a very warm welcome to everyone. We're talking to you from Zambia. The time here is 8:30 at night. I believe the time there in the US, where John is 2:30 in the afternoon. So good afternoon to all of our American viewers. Good evening to our UK viewers, and hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us. It gives me great pleasure this evening to introduce to you one of my all-time favorite rangers, Mr. Neddy Mulimo, who currently serves as our senior support manager in GRI and has been working for us for 8 years now. I first met Neddy, he in fact had retired, having served 36 years in the National Park Service. And we were just on the edge of setting up the Special Anti-Poaching Unit, and we asked National Parks who would be the best person to help us to do that. And the person who they referred us to was Neddy. So I went and met with him at his farm, and I managed to convince him to come back into conservation and to join us as our senior support manager in GRI, and to help us and the Department of National Parks set up the Special Anti-Poaching Unit. So I'm very honored to present Mr. Mulimo to you tonight. He's one of the most humblest people you'll ever meet, and really epitomizes what a game ranger represents. So I'd like to hand over to Mr. Mulimo, and perhaps just start by asking Mr. Mulimo to tell us a little bit about where he started, his life as a young boy growing up in Zambia. Tell us a bit about his family, and just how he got into conservation in the first place. So Mr. Mulimo, I hope you can hear me. Please tell us, how did you get into conservation? Tell us about your family and a bit of your background. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Neddy Mulimo. I come from Mumbwa, central part of Zambia. My father was Mr. Mulimo, and my mother was Margaret Mulimo. I come from the family of 7. That means we were 4 boys and 3 girls. As of now, I would say we are only 3 living. I'm the oldest, seconded by 1 brother and 1 sister. I was born on 15th December 1956. I grew up in a township called Matero in Lusaka now. I went to Matero Boys Primary. Later, I went to Matero Secondary School. When I completed, by then, that time, the NIPU government had put a rule. It was mandatory that whoever completes Form 5, which is grade 12 now, must go military training for 20 months. That was under Zambia National Service. When I completed, then I was employed by Wildlife Conservation Society as a Chongololo magazine distributor. That was a job I did for a year in Lusaka, and then I was taken to Treetops Conservation School Camp, which is right up in Kafue National Park. I became a caretaker for that camp, and that gave me a chance to meet most of the senior officers of National Parks and Wildlife. By then we had only 1 warden manning the whole entire Kafue National Park, based at Ngoma, and that was Leti Menemfumbo. By so much interacting with him, he convinced me to join GRZ, which is National Parks Department. And in 1985 June, I was invited to undergo a wildlife scouts training at Chonga Training School, where I did the training for 1 year from June 85 to July 86. I graduated as a wildlife scout. In total, during our training, we were only 38 in a group. And I was amongst the 33 who got wildlife management certificates. The 3 failed. Upon graduation, I was posted to Kafue, which was the headquarters for Central Command, where I worked doing law enforcement for a year, and then I was transferred to Mumba, to beef up Mumba office. There I did law enforcement again, both on roadblocks and in the national park, the same Kafue National Park. It's like Kafue National Park is my mother park. I did operations for 7 years at Mumba. Then I was moved to Blue Lagoon National Park in Kafue Flats. That's south of Mumba district. It became a challenge to do operations on flatlands because there was no cover for us to go closer to poachers, as it was in the wilderness in Kafue National Park. There we had a challenge. We could be seen by poachers before we see them. You try to give a chase, they just drop what they have and then leave you. Having done military training, I thought of introducing a strategy where we will be closer to poachers. This is how I introduced it, digging trenches, hide officers in there. Then poachers could walk, stalking animals, not knowing their officers underground. When they came closer, officers came out and gave a chase. That's how we started apprehending them, by handcuffing them and taking them to court of law in Mumba. That gave a plus to me and to the department. That's how I came to be known. And most of the department, senior management, they call me as the Neddy of Blue Lagoon because of that strategy. And it saved a lot. We really conserved the Kafue Lechwe. The number increased. I was in Blue Lagoon for 14 years. Towards my retirement, I was brought to Mumba again. That time now was Zawa, where I operated for 4 years, later retired. When I retired, I was given a 1-year contract, which I only served about 6 months. Then the regional manager by then, Mr. Milanzi, introduced me to Bana Sport Beat so that I can join him under Game Rangers International and form Special Anti-Poaching Unit, which is SAPU today.
Thank you, Mr. Mulimo. It's very difficult, in fact. You've done very well to summarize 36 plus years of service to conservation in just a few short minutes. And you've, again, been very humble, because I'm sure if we could share all the stories that, well, you've shared many stories with me. Myself and Mr. Mulimo have spent many hours driving around Kafue National Park, on patrol sometimes. And he's just an encyclopedia of stories. And I think we would need about 10 days to hear all of them. All of them are fascinating. Mr. Mulimo, I should have mentioned at the outset that you were also the recipient of the 2018 Ranger Awards, which is quite a unique award to win. But I just wanted to take you back to the very first part of as you came out of high school and you went into national service, and then you became a driver for the Wildlife Environment Conservation Society. You mentioned something there which I think is quite important for everyone to understand, is even starting from those days, there was an initiative by the Wildlife Society, by the government, to deploy information into the schools, and it's called Chongololo. Chongololo is the local name for a millipede. But Mr. Mulimo, maybe just briefly explain for our audience a little bit more about the Chongololo program and why you think that is important for the younger generations.
Yes, sport. Even in the past, the government had the mind of doing conservation of our animals in all national parks. That's how they went deep down through the NGO called Wildlife Conservation Society by forming Chongololo clubs or conservation clubs at the primary level and secondary level in all schools, which were accessible to the magazines, where we could go around distributing magazines, and in those schools were clubs and there were teachers who could interpret the magazine to patrol teams, and invited interested patrol groups could make efforts, donate money, and then go to treetops in Kafue National Park to be closer to animals after having seen them on magazines, and they could go closer to the park. It really worked very nicely because it groomed the young Zambians to a mind of being people who can conserve animals. Because animals, wildlife bring forex to Zambia. Therefore, the government really needed all growing up Zambians to have the mind of taking care of our own resources, not to be wasted like some selfishness men do shoot animals. Because if you're not taken care of, our animals can be wiped out, because we can kill more numbers than nature can reproduce. So even in the past sport, the government had the idea of grooming young Zambians to be that mind of conserving the wildlife of Zambia.
Thank you, Mr. Mulimo. And I think it's just important to mention that that same program, the Chongololo program, which Mr. Mulimo started with, is in fact still running in Zambia. It's one of the longest running education programs in the country. We're very proud to be associated with it. Our community outreach director, Jenny Van Hoek, who's actually with us this evening, still works very closely with the Wildlife Environment Society. And in fact, our chairman is also very closely linked to the success and the history of the Wildlife Environment Conservation Society. What's interesting for me is that a lot of the rangers that we speak to and that we meet, some of whom are not too far behind Mr. Mulimo in terms of age. And Mr. Mulimo, I hope you won't mind, but I just wanted to share with everyone that, in fact, you're 64 years old and you're still doing a full-time job, very active. You still go on patrol and you continue to share your experience with the younger rangers every day. But a lot of the rangers we come across in Zambia started their interest in conservation as a result of the Chongololo Club, which Mr. Mulimo was part and parcel of in the very early days. So again, it's a lovely legacy that Mr. Mulimo was part of. Mr. Mulimo, maybe just quickly for our audience to share a little bit about what it was like in your days going through the ranger training school, because these days when a ranger goes to the training school, it's usually only about 3 to 6 months. But you mentioned you were at the training school. First, you did 20 months of national service, and then you did 12 months of training at Chunga Training School. Just share with us a little bit about how was that? Was it?
Yes, but it was very demanding for those days. A wildlife scout duty is not something that one can just be taught in a short period, because you need to cover a lot. You first start studying all the animals which exist in Zambia, know them word by word in English, in scientific, and in Zambian languages. Thereafter, again, you cover trees, of course, less grass, and then you start the law. If you came across someone destroying vegetation, which law do you apply? Should you come across someone shooting animals or walking in the park, which law do you apply? So we had a lot to do, Hence, I spent a year studying wildlife management, court proceedings, road blocks, all those types of things, even in coming to military tactics on how to combat poaching. If you approach someone armed, how do you disarm that person? So it was a big program that covered the whole year. And you only had a break of 2 weeks in 1 year, only a break of 2 weeks. And still more, I had interest. In 1989 was working as a scout. I was one of the 600 game scouts countrywide who were selected to undergo paramilitary training at Delhi. And I did that paramilitary training for 9 months, which became very added advantage to my career, because the government realized that most of the poachers who were coming across in the park who had AK-47 were ex-soldiers. Some were serving soldiers. So they thought of game scouts to go under paramilitary training to add on top to what we got from Chunga. And I would say I'm proud to be among that team who confiscated most of the AK-47, which are now being used by our present rangers. They were not bought, they came from the bush.
Yeah, Mr. Mulimo, I think that's such an interesting fact. And just to share with our audience, we talk about game rangers and we talk about game scouts. They're two phrases which mean the same thing. But it's interesting to point out that all the firearms which the rangers now carry have all been confiscated. I would say more than 90% of the firearms which the rangers carry were in fact confiscated from poachers. So a good bit of, if you think about recycling, that's a good one for firearms. Mr. Mulimo, we've got to be careful of time. So just quickly, you've spent 36 plus years working in conservation. Just share with our audience, like, how many nights would you say during that whole career that you've slept in the bush? And what would be one of the most dangerous situations that you've faced, that you feel you've faced during that career?
Yeah, Sport. I would say whether it's unfortunate or fortunate, I've spent most of my time in the bush. I would say in a month, I would spend more than 25, maybe 10 days at home, but most of the days in the bush. And my wife came to accept that. Up now, I would say maybe I've spent more than 10,000 nights in the bush than at home, which is still happening even now. I spent 3 weeks on duty and only visit my family for 5 days, of which I'm not worried. It's something that I've adopted long time before, even before I got married. By the time I married, I was already spending those types of nights in the bush. So
yeah,
Mr.
Mulimo, it's an amazing amount of nights you've spent in the bush. I don't think there's too many people, certainly that I know of, who've spent probably more than 10,000 nights if we do the maths. So I just wanted to acknowledge and recognize you for that. But you mentioned about your family, and I've met your wife, and she's a lovely lady. And in fact, she was also working for the national parks. She was the private secretary to the warden when I met her. She's now retired. But maybe just tell us a little bit about your own family, and what do you do when you go home for your 7 days of rest?
Yes, Sport. When my wife retired, she opted to stay in the village than in the Beaumont township, so that she can be doing the farming, and she's doing the rearing of the village chickens, even growing vegetables. When I'm there resting, it's just a term that we use, resting. It's not resting as such. I need to join them to do the cultivation. Maybe if you can find me watering or getting the cattle manure, applying in vegetables, all those types of job to see to that I give examples to my children who are grown up already, because the youngest is at the university. They should understand that a man will never rest. As long as you are living, you need to work for you to eat. No one should work for you so that you just eat. As long as you are still energetic, time will come when I'll sit without doing anything due to old age. At this time, as long as I'm still energetic, I should do something for me to eat. Or give them an example that a man never retires, only gets tired.
Thanks, Mr. Mulimo. And I hope we have many, many more days that you feel energetic, because your presence within GRI is extremely valuable, and we're very grateful to you for everything. Mr. Mulimo, I've got a question here from someone just asking, what is the animal that you fear the most? Which animal do you fear the most, and why?
All animals are dangerous, but the most dangerous animals which I fear is the wounded buffalo. The reason is I've seen it fighting, and at one time, during my training school days, on the western side of Church Lake, I was on patrol on Pragat Coast. As we were walking along the Kafue river bank, we found a wounded buffalo which was snared. So it came to us. We were 19 in a queue. The three of us in front, we ran towards big trees. And it almost hammered me. It passed in front of me. I just saw it closer. Then I felt I was missed. Then it chased my friend. Before it hammered him, he climbed the tree. And really, we all felt very bad, trembling, and that's how we ended our day patrol. We went back to the camp. The senior most was our principal. Upon reporting to him that that is what transpired, he said, yes, that's why you are here on Pragat Coast. You should experience those. These are the wild animals that you want to take care. So you should know their behavior. You are not racing, guys. Go again the other direction. We went, but I wasn't myself. But I came to get used. But frank speaking, yes, an elephant, a lion, all these are dangerous. But the most fierce animal I fear is a buffalo, wounded buffalo. Not ordinary buffalo, but a wounded one. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mulimo. I think many people who understand the African bush would probably agree with you that the wounded buffalo is indeed a fierce and very dangerous creature to be faced with. But speaking of dangerous things, Mr. Mulimo, I know that you're quite famous. There's many stories about Mr. Mulimo, but there's one particular story where you had to, in fact, pretend that you were a poacher. Maybe, if you don't mind, you can share with the audience why did you do that? Why did you become a poacher for just a moment?
For sure, Sport. There's a dumbo on the northern part of Mumba town, which is called the Rukanga Swamps. At one time, I was told by the department to construct a camp there of poor and mud houses. So when I was looking for grass so that I can invite casuals to cut for thatching the roofs, I met 5 poachers. By then I had a Department 306 rifle, and I was in my own clothes. Now my interest, after they had seen me, I wanted to be closer to them so that I plan how I can have them arrested. And that's how I went closer. They also came closer to me. It was across Kafue River, which is now in Lunga Lufishi, Jeme. Then they were interested to know where I came from. And that's how I told them that I went missing because I didn't know the land. For sure, I really pretended as if I was lost. They fed me, I was very close. They could play around with my AK, my 306, but I could not give them my ammunition. I met them around 10 hours. I was with them up to 16 hours. Then I thought of now that I should not leave them. I should pretend I'm lost. So I told them, let me invite myself into your group. I gave them one rifle ammunition of 306, whereby that attracted the hunter. He became so friendly with me. He had 2 firearms, a 306 and a shotgun. So we spent a night. They had these small beddings. We made fire. They invited me. We ate. And then the following day, they wanted to know where they can find elephants. I know they could want to go to a far direction, but I told them that's the direction I came from. It's like there are game scouts there. I don't know what happened to my friend. Maybe they are arrested. Can we go to this direction? I was trying to take them closer to where I came from. Now, at one time, the hunter became so friendly and so loose that he left the position where he was to somewhere. And then I started praying with his firearms. I removed the ammunition. And now the plan was, if I got the firearms, they all ran away. And now I thought, no, I should just be flexible. At a certain point, we went close to the fishing camp. And now I left my firearm to show them that I was coming. I went, I wrote a note, and I sent to the team, to the camp where I was staying. I went back, I joined. There, I only had 1 scout and 10 casual workers who came now at night and manhandled us, including myself. Then we were disarmed, we were taken across there just to see that now I was one of the people handcuffing them. It became a very good, interesting story. And I was even rewarded by the department. That was 1992. By then, the department was awarding game rangers everywhere at Nyamaluma in Eastern Province, South Ruangwa National Park. I was rewarded for having challenged the 5 poachers and 2 firearms. Of course, that was the time they were entering, they had not shot anything. And that was the best type of conservation. We needed to disarm or apprehend poachers before they shoot them.
Absolutely, Mr. Mulimo. And I think it just highlights your bravery and your commitment and your dedication to the job as a game ranger. It's a famous story in Kafue, that one man disarmed 5 poachers and managed to bring them to be arrested. So once again, yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a really good thing. Yeah. Mr. Mulimo, just quickly, just talking about, poachers and rangers, and, we do know that sometimes, unfortunately, rangers can also fall foul of the law. And there's another very famous story in Zambia. I think his name was Samson Mushala. Is that the right? Samson Mushala.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe just share with our audience that story. It's also very interesting.
Yes, from the background sports, the rangers were called game guards. Game guards. People were guarding animals. And during, after independence, some people were sent out of the country to train in various fields so that when they come and head those departments. Samson Mushala was one of the people who were sent to South Africa so that when he comes, he should be one of the senior managers in National Parks and Wildlife Department at that time. When he came back, they did not give him the position as promised. So he was working with all the plans. Eventually, he turned himself as a rebel, trying to work against the government. By that time, Mshala really terrorized the northwestern province of Zambia for 7 years. He could get food from the communities there at night, anything he wanted. He could write notes, living even at schools. You find teachers who are living in the villages, abandoning government places. Until at one time, he was with the wife in the bush and the wife got conceived. During the time of delivery, she went back to the family. And that's how now the Zambia army got hold of the wife, who led them into the Lunga National Park in northwestern, where they reached at a certain bush in that forest. The lady told the army soldiers to strip naked. Immediately they stripped naked, then they saw Mshala coming in the bush with a bag where he had put honey. It was a honey butter. Of course, he was armed with his AK-47. Then that's where they fired and shot him dead. That one, Mshala terrorized the country of Zambia, northwestern province, from 1977 up to 1982, when he was shot dead. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and you can see you've summarized that story. Good. Mr. Mulimo, just looking at time, and if anyone does have any questions, Melissa, will you send them my way? But perhaps, Mr. Mulimo, maybe just to ask you, you've spent a lot of time working in conservation literally from the moment you left school and did your national service, you've been involved in conservation. So we can say that you've worked in conservation your whole adult life. What do you see as Mr. Mulimo compared to when you joined national parks? What are you seeing are the challenges between now and then? And what do you feel needs to change? What is it that we still need to improve? How can we improve compared to when you joined national parks? Or maybe there's no need to improve. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, when I joined National Park Sport, I would say we had the challenges in terms of patrol rations. Each time we went out on patrol, we were getting food from our homes. You are told you are going out maybe for a week, then you donate meal, you donate everything that you would want from all those patrol members, and then you go. So it will be food that would determine the number of days when you stay in the bush. That came to change when patrol ration started being provided to patrol teams. And that was because of involvement of NGOs, projects coming on board and so on. But what we really need to look at is the type of people we are employing, more especially school leavers from town. When they go out there, it becomes a challenge for them to tell them to do foot patrol. And again, our parks, like Kafue National Park, has been there without being developed in terms of road network. You really need, if you don't walk, then you won't find poachers. Or poachers can be the other side of the park, poaching, seated maybe for a month, you don't see them. So what I would urge was if we could divide the Kafue National Park in terms of grid references where they can be roads. Let's say, for example, from the Spinal Road west, just like the way Katin Fabric is. Katin Fabric is giving us access to drive from the Spinal Road up to the park boundary. So by so far doing, we are able to corner to protect that big bush along those rivers than the way it is in the northern part of the park you cannot drive from Lufupa Road to the west where you join the western boundary. So those are the challenges which we feel, should things work out, there's need to put those roads which can help in terms of law enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mulimo. And maybe just to share with our audience, for those who haven't been fortunate enough to visit Kafue, and if anyone hasn't come to Kafue or indeed hasn't come to Zambia, I would really highly recommend to consider taking a holiday as soon as travel restrictions lift. Zambia is a beautiful country, amazing people, and particularly Kafue National Park, which is 66,000 square kilometers. So that's 15 million acres. I think John said earlier before this call began that it's the size of Massachusetts. And we're currently supporting 120 rangers who are working hard every day under the support of Mr. Mulimo. And he's continually imparting his knowledge and experience to help those guys and girls. So it's not just the men, there's also female rangers to help protect Kafue National Park. Mr. Mulimo, we've nearly run out of time. So I think my last question to yourself is to, the whole world at the moment is affected by the coronavirus, and us in the Kafue in Zambia at GRI, we're also not unaffected. What would you say are your observations from the time that coronavirus has arrived to now? Is there an increase in poaching? And what do you think we might find in the next few months because of coronavirus?
Yeah, because of coronavirus, of course, there's the increase in poaching. People in the villages, they haven't stopped poaching. They still go because some lodges, there are few workers left. Some lodges are closed because even vehicles of lodges or vehicles of tourists, when they are driving in our national park, they scare poachers rather than the way it is now, whereby it's only our vehicles that are seen there. There are no more tourists going in the park. So poachers, they have taken an advantage of that. And again, there's a loss of foreign exchange to the government because the lodges are closed, the tourist industry is suspended. There are very few clients reaching few lodges in the park.
Thank you, Mr. Mulimo. Yeah, and again, just to reinforce, as soon as travel restrictions allow, I can only ask everyone to share the good word, spread the news, please, to your friends and families. If anyone is thinking of taking a trip to Africa or to Zambia, please look us up. We can put you in touch with all the right lodges. Zambia, as I said, is a beautiful place, and Kafue National Park is definitely worth a visit. Feel free to come and see us, and you can even meet Neddy Mulimo in person. I'm not sure if there's any questions that have come through, Melissa.
I don't see any questions in the chat or the Q&A, but just to let everybody know, if you do have any questions, to please leave those in the chat box or in the Q&A box. Either one is fine.
Okay, I have one question that I see just popped up. Mr. Mulimo, this question for you. You mentioned about the importance of wildlife to Zambia's economy. Is this your main motivation as a ranger? Or is there something else which really motivates you and gives you that passion, that power to do your job as a ranger?
Yes, Sport. Not only the economy of the country, also wildlife is we need to conserve and pass to our future generation, as the previous parents or ancestors of us did that. Of course, they could do the traditional hunting. That time there was no laws, but the chief or chiefs traditionally could control shooting of wild animals. That was conservation. Eventually, it came to a civilized world. People went to school, people are learned. Now we are conserving animals even everywhere. The government is there. There are NGOs, for example, JORA is supporting to see to that animals are conserved or they are passed again the future generation. And that's why I'm working tirelessly to see to that these animals don't finish. I recall very well that in the Bible, the first job that God gave man was to conserve, not to finish the natural resources. So when the job we are doing sport is biblically, we are Christians in short, and we'll be rewarded by God for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mulimo. Yeah, in fact, I've heard people refer to Noah as the first game ranger.
Yes.
Yeah. And just a question, you've worked, part of the job as a ranger is not just going on patrol to catch poachers, although that obviously at the moment, because of the levels of poaching in some of the areas, that is a primary focus. But it's also very important that we don't forget about the local communities who live next to the national parks, because the local communities, if they don't benefit from wildlife, then really conservation and the national parks are not going to survive into the long term. So how do you, just based on your own experiences working very closely with the communities, many times we unfortunately arresting people from the communities, what do you think is the community's perception of rangers? How do the communities look at you as rangers?
The community would only hate a game ranger if there is no interaction. There should be a wing that should bring the community and game rangers together. That's why under ZAWA, even the present national parks, there's a licensing officer, the extension officer. I can even name him is Francis Sakala Tingoma. That is his job, to go out there, just like our own man Britas is doing, to educate the people, to know the values of our wildlife. And there are so many ways we can attract them by trying to benefit them, direct or indirect. But it only becomes a challenge because some community members would want personal gain. That is where the problem is. We as the government or an NGO, we can manage to give community benefit, where, for instance, maybe like Mother's Shelter or a member, when I was with Izawa, we could fund certain classroom blocks being built at the Shakumbira Basic School, or those where school children could go and be educated, was getting all whatever subjects, even conservation lessons are given, because it becomes good examples. Otherwise, the community left without interaction, where they don't see any benefit, it becomes a challenge. What happens now? They always go for their personal gain, and then you start apprehending them and taking them to the court of law. For sure, ignorance has no defense. All what we need is first, we need to educate them before we apprehend or we punish them. That's the way I believe.
Absolutely, Mr. Mulimo. And I think one of my own personal realizations, even before I got to Zambia, is that if you don't include the local communities as active stakeholders, as beneficiaries of conservation and wildlife, then really we're playing a losing game. So a very big part of what we're doing, what the Department of National Parks are doing, and in fact what most of, if not all, the conservation groups in Zambia are doing, is trying to work much more closely with local communities, especially those communities living next to the national parks, and just trying to find new and alternative methods of income, alternative farming methods that don't promote human-elephant conflict, etc., etc. So I'm very excited about that. I think it's definitely the way forward, and it's good to see that there's some great gains being made on that front. I just wanted to circle back just one step. The question that was asked about, rangers working more for the benefit or for the passion. I think what I can safely say as someone who works very closely with yourself and with all the rangers that we support and with national parks is we know that they don't get paid very much. And to share with our audience, community rangers, so these are rangers that come from the local communities, they get paid less than $100 a month to go out for more than 20 days. You've heard the dangers and the experiences Mr. Mulimo's gone through. So, they don't get paid very much. But so what I'm trying to say is that my experience is that they're all very passionate. They're all very committed. And I find it a great privilege as GRI to work very closely and to empower the rangers and to try and make their lives better, and to try and give them everything that they need to do their job safely, efficiently, and effectively. And with that, Mr. Mulimo, I would like to say thank you very much for setting aside your time to come and be with us today. John, Melissa, the Endangered Species Fund, thank you very much for hosting us and for continuing to support us and to help raise awareness. I should have also mentioned that yesterday was World Ranger Day 2020. And I can honestly say that in all my time working conservation now, which is only about 21 years, not as much as Mr. Mulimo. But this year was the most support that I've seen, that I've witnessed for rangers and for conservation. And that's a very encouraging sign. And long may it continue to increase. So once again, thank you very much, everybody, for listening in. We hope you've learned a lot and enjoyed what we've had to share with you. But really, to get the real deal, come to Zambia, come and meet us, come and spend some time with us. We'd love to host you. John, Melissa, my chairman, Robin Miller, and Jenny, thank you very much. Mr. Mulimo, appreciate. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We are continuing on with our series of episodes, so please stay tuned for the next one. And check out our website if you'd like to see our most recent episode with Jenny Jack. It is es-fund.org/safari. And you can view our website for any donation purposes, as well as staying tuned to our Facebook and social media platforms as well. And we hope to see you for the next episode.
Mr. Mulimo, it was a real privilege and honor to have you here today and hearing your story. So thank you so much. And I hope it's not going to be so long before I get a chance to go back to Zambia again and meet you. And thank you, Sport 2 and Jenny and everybody. And we look forward to doing more in this series. And just to know that your voice has crossed thousands of miles live across the world is kind of, exciting thing to think about. And here we are in America and the UK listening to you, and we appreciate and congratulate you on your career, and my love to your family too.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Flora, and I am the events director with the Endangered Species Fund, and I'm located in Detroit, Michigan. I wanted to thank you for joining us today for our story safari. If you could please subscribe to our channel in the link, and then you can also join us in the comment section. We'd love to learn more about you. Please stay tuned for any future episodes that we are doing in the Story Safari project. And then a little note to cap us off is, as the African saying goes, if you think you're too small to make a difference, you've never spent the night with a mosquito. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you soon. Bye.